Marrying Xiasun as his concubine was not my choice. He had a beloved first wife, whose fate remained unknown, and a favored concubine who drowned herself in the lake on my wedding day, a blatant provocation. Because of the arranged marriage, my mother wept silently. "My child, how will you endure the days ahead?" I applied my makeup as usual, donning the wedding gown. What choice did I have? If Xiasun refused to live properly, it would only mean leaving the father behind and taking the son. When Xiasun abandoned the marriage midway, causing an uproar throughout the city, I was dressing myself, applying vermilion, drawing my eyebrows, dotting my lips. Finally, I gathered my hair. Mother stood by, furious enough to spit blood. Were it not for the Empress being Xiasun's own sister, she'd have cursed his ancestors 3 generations back. Does he think a daughter of the Shui family is unsellable? Forcing her upon him? I'll seek out your father, this marriage must be annulled. The makeup artist, flustered, snatched at my hair, snapping several strands. She abruptly knelt in supplication. I watched the peach-blossom-cheeked, willow-browed figure in the bronze mirror curve her lips, her tone calm. "Continue." Hearing this, Mother clenched her handkerchief so tightly she forgot to wipe her tears. She had been deeply dissatisfied with this match from the start. The General Xia I'm to marry, though a noble uncle by marriage to the Emperor, has a first wife who vanished 3 years ago during bandit raids while traveling to the capital. My marriage to him would merely make me his second wife. And today's troublesome concubine? She's none other than the first wife's younger sister, Xiasun's sister-in-law. Such an obscure relationship, were it not for the new emperor's desire to forge ties with old ministers by bestowing this marriage. No family with standing in the capital would have allowed their daughter to leap into this fiery pit. With my status as the legitimate daughter of the Duke of Qing, I could have been a crown princess or a prince's consort. But my father's military power made the throne uneasy, and Xiasun's first wife vanished while pregnant, though survival seemed unlikely. Her fate remained unknown. My heart was unwilling. His spirit resisted. Yet we were bound together by an imperial decree. My mother's suggestion to annul the marriage was easier said than done. Sure enough, before long, envoys arrived from the palace. The Empress bestowed numerous bridal gifts, among which the wedding gown she herself wore on her wedding day was truly precious. Nanny Lin took my hand and gently coaxed me. "Your Majesty and the Empress are well aware of Miss Shui's grievances. This gown was personally embroidered by Her Majesty when she wed His Majesty. Wearing it today will surely bring you good fortune and smooth sailing in all matters. Rest assured, Your Lordship and Lady, Her Majesty will see justice done for you." These words were meant to soothe, yet also hinted that this marriage must proceed, come what may. The alliance between the old and new dynasties left no room for compromise. I bowed in submission, feigning modesty. For Qingbi's sake, I begged the Empress Dowager not to trouble that concubine Lu. After all, General Xia and I have a long life ahead. A flicker of approval passed through the matron's eyes as she offered more auspicious words. Once she departed, Mother scolded me fiercely. "How could you intercede for that worthless wench?" Spies reported earlier that 2 more matrons visited the Xia household today. Whether Lu Xiaonyang is rewarded or punished, I care not. Others will surely relay my words to Xiasun and the Empress, securing me a favorable reputation. As I analyzed the situation with my mother, her eyes suddenly welled with tears. Before she's even married off, she must scheme endlessly. Why must my daughter suffer such injustice? If the wedding day is already this absurd, what will happen once you're married? I was momentarily speechless as firecrackers suddenly burst outside. The crowd cheered, "The groom has finally arrived." Mother, I was raised by your own hands. I won't let anyone bully me. I forced a smile to comfort her, keeping my true plans hidden. What could I do? I had once imagined building a life with Xiasun. Since he refuses, it's merely a matter of leaving my father behind. On our wedding night, Xia Sun was nowhere to be seen. I removed my makeup and hair ornaments, changed into night clothes, and leaned against the bed reading military texts. The maid Ying Qiao fumed indignantly. How can you even think of reading? Forget everything else, at the very least. You should let the groom see the wedding gown bestowed by Her Majesty the Empress. Madame Gouet, trimming my candle, raised an eyebrow at this. What's there to see? So the groom can admire our young mistress's splendid finery? Ying Qiao looked utterly aggrieved. Young mistress. Will the groom still come tonight? I couldn't help but smile. She was still just a child, unable to keep her composure. Xia Sun would naturally come. That Lu concubine is still ill today. The two matrons only dragged her up for a scolding, not actually laying a hand on her. Even if he disregards my pleas, he should at least be sensible for Lu Wanqing's sake. But if he sees this wedding gown, then not only will the sliver of affection I fought so hard to earn vanish, he'll likely despise me for abusing my power. Managing the inner quarters is like commanding troops, not a single detail can be overlooked. At midnight, General Xia pushed open the door, reeking of alcohol. I lifted my gaze from the lamp, meeting his cold, icy eyes. Xia Sun possessed striking good looks. Father once said he was loyal and righteous, achieving military glory at a young age. Were it not for his indecisiveness and confusion in matters of the heart, he might have been a suitable match for me. What a pity! Caught off guard by our gaze meeting, his expression stiffened, and he hastily looked away. I smoothed my skirt, revealing just the right amount of cheerfulness. A warming soup to sober you up is ready in the small kitchen. Would the general care to have some? This was my way of asking if he would stay the night. Xia Sun and I were complete strangers, making the situation rather awkward. Only when I could no longer hide my weariness did he finally nod. His lips pressed together. Wanqing is frail. I must thank you again for speaking on her behalf today. The attendants had already withdrawn after helping him change into his night garments. He sat down beside me, observing me with a slight glance. I smiled indifferently. It wasn't really her fault. I merely mentioned it in passing. Nothing to make a fuss about. Of course, it wasn't Lu Xianyang's fault at all. The one who had embarrassed me today was clearly him. Xia Sun's face flushed with embarrassment. His peripheral vision caught the book in my hand, and his eyes lit up. You enjoy reading military treatises? Merely to pass the time. I set down the Taigong Lu Tao inside. Once I start reading, I find it hard to put down. But some passages are so obscure, I simply cannot grasp them. He took the book, intrigued. Which parts are unclear? Just as I was about to answer, a child's wailing pierced the courtyard. Daddy! I want Daddy! Xia Sun frowned and hurried outside. A cold wind rushed in from outside, causing the pair of dragon and phoenix candles to flicker for a moment before leaving only 2 wisps of smoke. I fastened my cloak and followed out at a leisurely pace. A toddler, about 2 years old, was clinging to Xia Sun's neck, sobbing uncontrollably. This must be Xia Wanyun, born to concubine Lu, the sole child of the Xia household now. Where's the wet nurse? How could she let the young miss wander off alone? A woman emerged furtively from behind the courtyard gate and knelt on the ground. General! Madam! The young miss was likely startled by the firecrackers today. Since nightfall, she's been crying for Auntie Sun and the general. The concubine is ill now, and I truly had no choice. A daughter missing her father, no one can blame her. The maid was about to scold her, but I waved her off. The child comes first. A rare look of guilt flashed across Xia Sun's face. After a moment's hesitation, he hurriedly scooped up the little one and headed toward the moon-reflecting pavilion. Ying Qiao stamped her foot in fury. Mother! How could you let them into the courtyard? That Lu concubine, she's no quiet sort. Gui Mama entered and handed me a cup of hot tea. As if I didn't know? Which quiet concubine just happens to drown on the day the mistress enters the household? I see this Xie family truly comes from a small place, they have no sense of propriety whatsoever. I was raised by Gui Mama. So naturally. The Xie family didn't fare well in her words. She always looked out for me. Even when I asked her to guard the gate and let people in, she followed my instructions to the letter. Today was too eventful, not the right time for consummation. Better to grant them this small favor. Besides, a noble lady raised by a distinguished family has her own dignity and pride. Make arrangements. I must rest well, tomorrow brings a fierce battle. Xia Sun and I were betrothed by imperial decree. By custom, we must enter the palace early tomorrow to express our gratitude. When Xia Sun came to fetch me, I was practicing swordplay in the rear courtyard. He'd likely never seen a woman wielding blades and spears. And he stood there dumbfounded. Only when I noticed him did I halt my movements. Then, belatedly, he exclaimed, "I had no idea you possessed such martial skill." I pressed my lips together in a smile. I'm a bit nervous about entering the palace shortly. Having practiced little lately, I've given the general cause for amusement. A hint of admiration flashed in his eyes. And he seemed about to say more. Maids and attendants came to announce the hour had arrived. The carriage prepared. Upon reaching the cunning hall, the Empress commanded only Xie Sun to rise and speak. I silently reviewed my actions in my mind, certain I'd made no errors. Straightening my back, I knelt calmly. Xie Sun frowned slightly, several times on the verge of speaking, before finally unable to restrain himself. "Your Majesty." The tea lid fell lightly onto the cup, producing a crisp sound. Only then did the Empress slowly lift her gaze, casting a half-smiling, half-teasing glance at Nanny Lin. I was so engrossed in conversation I forgot Qingbi was still kneeling. "Why didn't you remind me?" Nanny Lin hurriedly helped me up, smiling as she said, "This old servant thought Lady Xia wished to ask your Majesty to settle the matter concerning Jinheng." The moment those words left her mouth, I knew she was about to bring up the consummation of the marriage. My face flushed with shame and embarrassment, and I knelt once more. But then Xie Sun's expression stiffened, and he knelt straight beside me. "This matter is entirely my fault." Beneath his wide sleeves, his large, calloused hand gently squeezed the back of mine, offering comfort. I shot him a grateful glance, only to suddenly meet his gaze. This time, he did not look away. By the time Her Majesty the Empress regained her composure, she personally helped me up and bestowed numerous gifts. "This palace knows full well that the Shui family's daughter must be virtuous. You are both so young, there is no need to rush. Only when the Xie family marries you will this palace truly feel at ease." I held my breath, focusing all my attention on responding with utmost deference. After Xie Sun went to see the emperor, it was not until over 30 days had passed that the empress spoke again, her tone serious. "A matter troubles me, and I asked Qingbi to ease my worries. This concerns the marriage of my younger sister, Xia San." The Xie family hails from Longxi. Their rise to prominence came solely through producing an empress. Though the empress's sister needn't worry about marriage, suitors vying for favor are mostly petty and unscrupulous. Xie Sun has earned a reputation for favoring a concubine over his wife. The aristocratic families, naturally disdainful and cautious, feared being drawn into future succession struggles. This marriage is indeed a difficult situation, too high to reach, yet too low to settle. When leaving the palace, Matron Lin personally came to see her off. Yesterday, this old servant conveyed the lady's words. Her Majesty praised the lady for her grace and wisdom. Today's matter was also meant to foster harmony between the young couple. Please do not misunderstand Her Majesty's intentions. This implies the Empress deliberately ordered my punishment kneeling to strengthen my bond with my husband. Whether it was feigned kindness or a subtle warning, I could not clarify. Fortunately, Xia Sun did harbor some remorse toward me. He's even willing to defend me in public, a promising start. I pressed the bulging pouch into the matron's hands and bowed respectfully. I shall never betray the Empress's kind intentions. Rest assured, Your Majesty. Third young lady's marriage will be most splendid. Matron Lin beamed with satisfaction, her wrinkles gathering like blossoms in full bloom. With your sharp wit, how could you possibly fail to thrive in this life? On the carriage ride back, Xia Sun instinctively mentioned Lady Lu. Wanqing hasn't fully recovered yet. Once she's better, I'll bring her to pay her respects to you. Since the main family isn't in the capital, tradition dictates that the secondary wife should present tea to the primary wife and perform the formal kowtow ceremony. I have no desire to confront her directly, nor do I care for such formalities. The pressing matter now is to meet the third young lady, Xia Huan. The three siblings of the Xia family share a profound bond. Unlike previous petty affections, only when her marriage is properly arranged will Xia Sun truly remember my kindness. We found Xia Huan in Lu Wanqing's moon-reflecting pavilion. Only then did I see Lu Wanqing, the concubine who had drowned on my wedding day. I'd heard that the first wife, Lu Wan, was plain in appearance but won Xia Sun's heart as his childhood sweetheart. This concubine, born to a later wife, bore a striking resemblance to her half-sister. Unadorned and pale, she possessed a delicate, almost sickly beauty, like spring grass by the riverbank, or willows swaying in the breeze. Wealth truly does nurture one's appearance. Judging by the decorations and ornaments in Inghua Pavilion, she carried herself with the poise of the Xia household's mistress. Xia Sun showed her such devotion, I wonder how much was genuine affection, and how much was duty to his first wife. Upon seeing me, an unnatural blush rose to her cheeks, and she tried to crawl up to pay her respects. I gently pressed her down, my tone soft. Sister, you are unwell. There's no need for such formalities. Such affectedness. The third young lady, upon first meeting me, showed no kindness. Brother, marrying this woman, how can you face our late sister-in-law? How can you face Sister Wanqing? The sister-in-law she spoke of course, was not me. Lu Wanqing promptly shed a few tears, lamenting. If Sister Wanqing were watching from heaven, she'd surely rejoice that her brother-in-law has found such a good match. My expression remained impassive, but a chill ran down my spine. What a twisted way to put it. Brother, have you forgotten how Sister Wanqing cared for you and me? When she was held captive by those villains, she was carrying your child. At the mention of Lu Wan, Xia Sun's mind went blank, his heart aching unbearably. Watching coldly, I finally understood. Lu Wanqing was cunning and calculating, while Xia Huan was a reckless firecracker. Since she was willing to be the sacrificial lamb, used as a pawn by others, I would naturally oblige. Third miss. By custom, you should address me as sister-in-law. Pa. What kind of? This isn't my place to say. But today the Empress specifically instructed me to find you a suitable match. Third miss. You're of marriageable age. If you continue to show such disregard for propriety and hierarchy in public, the ladies of noble families will mock you behind your back. I lifted my teacup. My tone 3 parts jest, 3 parts earnest. Xia Huan's face flushed crimson. She pointed at me, trembling and unable to speak. This struck at the Xia family's sore spot. Xia Sun's face hardened as he scolded her. Enough. Xia Huan. My affairs are none of your concern. Return to your quarters and learn proper etiquette. Xia Huan still tried to cry and fuss. By this point, I was utterly exhausted. I rose to take my leave, leaving them to their family drama. This Xia household is truly a cesspool of chaos. When has my well-bred young lady ever endured such indignity? Back at Shutong Pavilion, Mother Gui could no longer hold back her sighs. Though Xia Huan was dim-witted, the task the Empress had entrusted her with still needed handling. As we spoke, I had already drafted a letter to my mother. She understood the intricate web of relationships in the capital best. Xia Huan's marriage arrangements would inevitably require her assistance. Just as Yin Qiao was about to send someone with the letter, her eyes darted about thoughtfully. "Young miss," she said. "I noticed something off about Lady Lu's expression when we mentioned third young Miss's marriage. Though we're not competing with her, shouldn't we be wary?" I nodded, generously praising her. Silver Qiao had grown more astute. Keep her occupied with tasks, and she'll have no time for Xia Huan's affairs. Lu Wanqing held the household reins. Yingyue Pavilion was undoubtedly as secure as a fortress. Targeting her would be too troublesome. But she has a biological elder brother, a notorious libertine, practically riddled with holes. The Lu family, descendants of officials. How could they raise such a scoundrel? Mother Gui was utterly perplexed. During these days of awaiting marriage, through father's connections, I'd already uncovered the true nature of these people. Though the Lu family was a respected clan in Longxi, their reputation was far from pristine. Their household traditions notoriously mercenary. Were it not for this, how could they have sent a sister-in-law already betrothed to become a concubine? Over the years, Xia Sun had spent no small effort cleaning up their messes. But certain bonds of goodwill, who could say when they might wear thin? These days, I've been holed up in Shutong Pavilion. I hadn't realized Yingyue Pavilion had erupted in turmoil several times already. Word is that the second master of the Lu family got involved in a scandal outside, with a married woman. No less. She insisted it was Lu Qi who forced himself on her. Though she came from a merchant family, they were prominent imperial suppliers. A group stormed the Lu residence, demanding justice. Madame Lu wept in Xia Sun's study all afternoon. Just as she seemed to recover, she nearly fainted again. By evening, I hadn't yet sent anyone to look for her. Xia Sun arrived uninvited, his eyes and brows heavy with exhaustion. Qingbai spends her days avoiding work, truly oblivious to the world outside her window. His words carried a hint of resentment. How could you say such a thing, master-in-law? These past days, our young mistress has been so preoccupied with finding a suitable match for third young mistress that she's practically memorized every social custom in the capital. Yin Qiao reluctantly brewed a pot of guzhu purple bamboo shoots tea, instantly filling the room with its crisp, refreshing aroma. Xia Sun lifted the steaming cup, letting out a satisfied sigh. I blinked. I've not failed in my duty. There truly is a suitable match. The Kong family, Grand Secretary of the Western Pavilion. Though Minister Kong holds only a fourth-rank position, he is a true confidant of the Emperor. His eldest son passed the imperial examinations before reaching 20 and now serves as a compiler in the Hanlin Academy. After a few years of field experience, his future is assured. Moreover, his maternal uncle currently holds a post in the Ministry of Personnel. He chuckled softly, his eyes clearing as he opened them. Though seemingly lowly in rank, he comes from a scholarly lineage and wields real power. Without my needing to spell it out, he already understood the intricacies. Studying the dark circles beneath my eyes, he placed his hand over mine. My lady, you've been working hard. My cheeks flushed, but I didn't shy away. In a few days, the Marquis of Xinyuan's wife is hosting a banquet and has sent an invitation to Lady Kong. Third young lady has been cooped up for too long. This would be a perfect chance for her to get some fresh air. Would the general care to accompany me? He readily agreed. Matters of courtship between man and woman need not be spelled out so plainly. Candlelight flickered softly, filling the room with quiet. Xia Sun dropped the subject of names and turned instead to Lu Qi's affairs. After pondering for a moment, I weighed my words carefully. If silver proves ineffective, why not feign an attack in one direction while striking another? surround the way to rescue Zhao. What do you mean? Having achieved the status of imperial merchant, finding some sordid means of collusion between officials and merchants should not be difficult. With such leverage in hand, what would a mere romantic affair amount to? His expression brightened, a subtle curve lifting the corners of his mouth. Qing Bigua truly understood military strategy. He turned again to fetch that copy of the 6 secret teachings of Tai Gong, explaining each point to me in detail. By the time he'd answered all my questions, the full moon hung high outside the window. The Gushu purple bamboo shoot tea had long since grown cold. Yet he paid it no mind, downing the last of it in one gulp. I teased him with a smile. My husband. So well versed in these matters, I wonder how many times you've gone over them with Lu's sister. He stared at me blankly. What did you just call me? I turned my face away in embarrassment. And only then did he say with a hint of regret, the women of the Lu family never read books. She's not like you, she's never been fond of such things. I snorted coldly, pushing him toward the door. Oh, I see. So she dislikes the general and came to tell me instead. Just then, a maid from Mingyue Pavilion arrived to announce that Lady Lu hadn't eaten all day. Xia Sun furrowed his thick brows. When the mistress is in a foul mood, you should at least try to console her. Leaning against the corridor, I watched his hasty retreat. Barely a stick of incense later, Xia Sun's personal servant delivered several books. These military treatises were treasures cherished by the general. He specifically instructed that they be kept for the eldest mistress to pass the time. The pages were yellowed and curled at the edges, clearly well-thumbed and never far from his grasp. After a moment's thought, I sketched a diagram and asked him to deliver it to Xia Sun. Yin Qiao teased me with a grin. These look like rare editions, but Lady Tai Gong mastered them by age 8. When it comes to military strategy, does the young master know as much as she did? Xia Sun certainly understood, though he didn't know I was actually targeting Lu Xianyang. Once I avoided her and arranged Xia Huan's match with the Kong family, ensuring no trouble, that merchant would naturally lay low. Yet despite my careful planning, the Kong family affair still went awry. At the Marquis of Xinyuan's wife's banquet, Miss Xia Sun seemed reluctant but dressed appropriately. After exchanging pleasantries with Lady Kong for a moment, I sent someone to fetch Miss Xia, only to find her nowhere to be seen. Time ticked by, second by second. Even as I recounted amusing anecdotes over and over, Lady Kong's expression grew increasingly sour. Xia Huan's maid stood there with a mournful face, her eyes darting about. Miss Xia has upset her stomach. I was sent back to tell the mistress. Her absence spoke volumes. When I inquired about Xia Huan's whereabouts and found her at the polo field, the third miss stood flushed, whispering something to Xia Sun. Standing beside them was none other than Lu Wanqing. Madame Gue, her face twisted with disdain, murmured in my ear, bringing a concubine to a banquet? That's slapping the mistresses in the face. Absurd. The Xia household has committed countless absurdities, this one matters little. I forced a smile, patiently preparing to discuss the Kong family affair with Xia Sun. Then I caught Lu Wanqing's lips curling in an almost imperceptible, enigmatic smile directed at me. As I drew nearer, I recognized the figures on the field and suddenly understood. In the battle of the inner quarters, psychological warfare reigns supreme. I understood this principle well, and Lu Wanqing was clearly a master at it. In that moment of distraction, Xia Huan deliberately clung to my arm in feigned intimacy, cooing. I must say, that young General Lin serving under the Duke seems quite suitable. Though you once discussed marriage with him, surely you wouldn't mind, right? Lin Jingtang was the only son of my father's deputy commander. His background isn't distinguished, but his family's reputation is upright, and his household is simple. The Duke's mansion is already a target for gossip. Father and mother cherish me and admire his talent. Originally, We favored the Lin family, low-key and thoroughly vetted. Where did third sister hear such nonsense? If you truly fancy young General Lin, send word to inform us. Why cause me such embarrassment before Lady Kong for no reason? I smiled serenely, pointing directly at Xia San for ruining the Kong family's match. Xia San's expression turned icy as he snapped in a low voice. Shut your mouth. You keep talking about choosing your own husband, do you have any shame left? Xia Huan was utterly indignant. Ah, Huan. A woman's marriage has always been thus. Who in the capital doesn't know that were it not for His Majesty's decree, Sister Shui would have shared a deep bond with General Lin? You do well to heed your brother and sister-in-law's words. After all, as the daughter of a distinguished duke, Lu Wanqing soothed her with gentle words. These words appeared to admonish Xia Huan, yet subtly insinuated that I had a prior connection with Lin Jingtang and was unwilling to marry Xia Sun. Furrowing my brows slightly, I was about to speak. A roar of cheers erupted from the polo field, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Young General Lin spurred his horse and raised his pole, sealing the victory in a single play. As the riders led their horses off the field, an unfamiliar servant boy approached, holding a red gold filigree incense ball. Whose incense ball was lost on the field? Everyone's is accounted for. Only General Lin wasn't wearing one. The young master of Minister Su's household took the incense ball, examined it closely, and teased. Jing Tang, could this be a gift from some beloved confidant? There's even an inscription on it, quite exquisite. The custom of men and women wearing incense balls is an elegant trend that has emerged in our dynasty. As I got a clear look at the delicate piece, my face paled, and I instinctively took a step back. Lu Wanqing suddenly covered her mouth, her eyes fixed intently on my waist. Sister-in-law, how could your incense ball be a pair with General Lin's? Xia Huan fixed me with a piercing stare, her voice thick with resentment. Her tone was neither loud nor soft, yet it struck like a thunderclap. The noblewomen watching the spectacle began whispering among themselves, ignoring her brother's warning glare. Xia Huan pressed on. The engraving on these incense balls, is it not your maiden name? Sister-in-law? The situation grew increasingly tense. Su Gongzi cautiously gauged our expressions, the object in his palm suddenly feeling unbearably hot, neither to hold nor to discard. I could only look to Xia Sun for help. These two scarlet gold incense balls, carved with hibiscus flowers, were indeed a pair, and they did bear my name. Crafted by the Jiangnan Jewelry Workshop, there was likely not a third such piece in all the capital. I dropped it. It's not mine. Xia Sun and Lin Jingtang's voices rang out simultaneously. The young General Lin exchanged a glance with him, his expression glancing naturally over me as he explained. This isn't mine. I train troops daily and have no habit of wearing such things. Xia Sun took my hand, smiling with unruffled composure. This incense ball is mine. It was originally a pair with my wife's. My younger sister is thoughtless and has caused everyone amusement. I took the incense ball and, smiling, fastened it to Xia Sun's waist with my own hands. Everyone present was sharp as a tack. They chimed in with playful banter about how harmonious General Xia and Lady Shui were, and how their love made others envious. The journey back to the mansion passed in silence. Xia Sun walked ahead expressionless, while I followed behind in quiet contemplation. Lu Wanqing scurried after him, tugging at his sleeve. General, please don't blame my sister. There must be some misunderstanding. She knew better than anyone whether he wore the incense ball when they shared a room night after night. Her voice was gentle and subdued, yet her eyes sparkled with undisguised triumph. In the next instant, Xia Sun violently shook her off. Caught off guard, Lu Wanqing fell hard to the ground. Her eyes lifted, brimming with tears. In a hoarse whisper, she gasped, "Brother-in-law." Xia Sun didn't spare her a glance. He shot a hateful look at his incompetent sister before striding purposefully toward the study. Lu Wanqing dodged the maid's hand, fixing me with a venomous stare. She couldn't fathom why Xia had shielded me in front of outsiders. Why? Upon returning home, was she the one bearing the brunt of his anger? I curved my lips slightly, lowering my head to fiddle with the objects at my waist. Madame Lu is exceptionally clever. But aside from our third young miss, the others aren't fools either. That day, Mother Gui accompanied me to the palace. Someone from the needlework room came, saying only that the floating light brocade I'd sent for summer garments had encountered some mishap. Yin Xiao reluctantly went to investigate. When she returned, she saw several maids with flushed cheeks. Upon inquiry, she learned the matron from the main kitchen had brought plum wine as a gift and chatted with the girls for quite some time. Lu Xiaonyang was alert enough to immediately order my dowry items sorted and catalogued. Only then did she discover a red gold filigree incense ball was missing from the room. This treasure was part of a pair, specially commissioned by my mother from Jiangnan for my trousseau. The balls were embroidered with gold thread depicting my beloved crabapple blossoms and engraved with my maiden name. Should it leave the estate, it would greatly damage my reputation. Lu Wanqing, the steward, had her people stationed everywhere, from the needlework room to the kitchen. Naturally, I wouldn't tell her. Though I lacked concrete evidence, I had prepared a backup plan long ago. Xia knew I'd lost something vital. Since I couldn't leave the estate, he drew a sketch of the incense ball when he delivered the military texts, asking him to keep an eye out for it outside. If anyone pawned or sold it, he was to buy it back immediately. Yet the item surfaced with such uncanny timing. By nipping this in the bud, if he still fails to see the scheme unfolding, this general's title might as well be handed over to me. Truthfully, I never expected to punish Lu Xiaonyang over such an unsolvable case today. She simply acted too rashly. Her scheme merely aimed to drive a wedge between Xia Sun and me. She should never have meddled with Xia Huan's marriage, nor forced her to speak out in public. Xia Huan caught the sarcasm in my tone, accusing her of foolishness, and her anger made her speak without restraint. Shui Qingbi, what kind of mind-altering potion have you fed my brother? Third sister, you'd do better to mind your own affairs rather than mine. Her eyes widened in bewilderment. Taking Yin Xiao's arm, I turned to leave, sighing helplessly. After today's words and actions, you surely don't imagine finding a decent match in the capital? The gossip in the capital could drown a person. That little affair between Xia Sun and me was already the subject of endless whispers on our wedding day. My engagement to young General Lin was no secret either. My mother holds some standing in these circles. Though whispers circulated about Xiangqiu, they remained baseless gossip. Miss Xia, however, found herself suddenly infamous. That day on the polo field, the noble ladies saw it all clearly. Returning home, they warned their daughters to keep their distance from that Xia third. They claimed she disregarded social hierarchy, lacked propriety, and acted in defiance of convention. Some meddlers even invited Lady Kong out for tea, subtly probing about potential matches. By the time the Empress learned of it, Miss Xia's reputation as frivolous and reckless had already taken root in people's minds. Xia Sun had no choice but to send her back to their ancestral home in Longxi to reflect behind closed doors. Under his elderly mother's strict supervision, after several tantrums, Xia Huan finally pleaded pitifully, "Brother, if I reflect for 3 years, I'll be an old maid." I replied slowly, "Third sister, don't fret. That's just what we tell outsiders. Your brother and I have already set our sights on General Li Buwei of the southern frontier. Once the formal betrothal rites are completed, she'll be married within a year or so." General of the southern frontier? That means she'd have to marry into Yunnan? I won't marry. I won't go. Xia Huan's eyes widened, her voice sharp and piercing. A flicker of pain crossed Xia Sun's eyes, but he remained stern as he waved his hand, shoving his sister into the carriage. Though the Li family is distant, They are true provincial governors. Li Buwei possesses noble character. Even if slightly older, he is more than suitable for Xia San. I have no intention of tormenting Xia Huan. If she would only temper her spirit and cultivate herself, this would be a splendid match. Xia Sun stood at the small gate, silently watching the carriage grow distant. Siblings parted thus. Yet who knew when they might meet again? Until the rain fell like threads, and mist rose in the alley. Qingbai is slow-witted. The book the general gave me that day contained many things I didn't understand. Would my husband be willing to enlighten me? Even I must admire Lu Wanqing's skill in manipulating hearts. Or perhaps she understood her own bedmate too well. After that day, the empress had her punished with kneeling, citing the concubine's lack of propriety at the banquet. Xia Sun had indeed been cold toward her, and he wasn't particularly warm to me either, until I heard that a large patch of quince and crabapple trees had been cut down in the rear garden. When Yin Qiao inquired, they only said the general disliked them. I was left both laughing and crying. Hai Tang, startled by the hawthorn. So that was it. Those whispers had found their way into his heart at some point. Fortunately, Xia Xian's marriage was already arranged. He still owed me that courtesy. Lanterns lit one by one in Shudong Pavilion, silently piercing the sticky night. After making the bed, Mother Gui withdrew. I watched, step by step, filled with joy. The consummation of the marriage could not be delayed further. Today, the couple in the chamber carried an air of subtle, unspoken intimacy in their every action. Xia Sun was recounting a tale to me when, unnoticed, his long arm slipped around my slender waist. Qingbi is distracted. She deserves punishment. How shall I be punished? His fingertips flicked lightly, effortlessly pinching the soft flesh at the small of my back. Caught off guard, I shyly reached to pull his hand away. But my clumsy movement knocked over the low table, sending an unfinished nightgown tumbling onto the floor. Xia Sun lowered his eyes, his profile flickering in the candlelight. Were you embroidering a begonia? I gestured to his stature. Does the general dislike begonia flowers? He studied me intently, his tone teasing. I hear this flower symbolizes unrequited love and parting sorrow. Could it be that Qingbi harbors a deep affection for a lover beyond her reach? His words were deeply inappropriate, leaving me momentarily stunned. He had been waiting for my explanation, but seeing my silence, he took it as guilt. The rare manuscript in his hand was tossed onto the desk with a sharp thud. In the silence, it sounded especially jarring. I'll go check on Wanqing. Madam, please retire early. Xia Sun stepped out, his tone unconsciously growing colder. Most men in this world are just like this. He can have his one true love, his eternal moonlight, and then add another tender embrace, a willow swaying in the breeze. Yet I, who prided myself on following the rules, faced his suspicion merely because of an ordinary marriage proposal. Even if it's all an act, I wear a mask of scorn. Madame Gui sighed disapprovingly. The young master intended to stay tonight. Why did you deliberately drive him away? The Empress Dowager remains unsettled about third young Mrs. situation. If she truly cared for you, it might be different. But I fear. How could I not know? Had the Empress truly cherished me, she would have dealt with the concubine long before our marriage. But she refused to be the villain, unwilling to strain her bond with her brother. Time and again, she let matters slide. Only when Xia San's affair erupted, and even Xia Sun grew furious, did she finally punish Lu Wanqing harshly. I see clearly how she weighs the situation, distinguishing between close and distant ties. In a marriage between two clans, offspring are paramount. You must plan for your own future. I let her remove her hairpins and ornaments, then replied calmly, Mother, I know my limits. The abscess has already formed. If we don't cut it open decisively now, it will become a major problem later. The entire household knows the general and the lady of the house are at odds. He doesn't come, and I won't acknowledge him. After days of silence, the moonlit pavilion bustled once more. Even the gatehouse servants knew that Lady Lu's favor within the manor remained undiminished. Yin Xiao returned from the kitchen, wiping away tears in fury. Young miss, these wretched servants have gone mad. I merely asked for a bowl of bloodbird's nest. Yet that old hag dared to imply you're no longer a maiden, saying only pregnant women deserve such delicacies. Secrets never stay hidden long in grand mansions. Oh, what did you say? Yin Xiao finally perked up with satisfaction. I said, can the esteemed Duke's residence not even afford a bowl of blood swallow's nest? Our young mistress at the Duke of Qing's mansion has golden swallow's nest every single day. I'll have to ask this concubine how she manages the household. Where did all the silver go? They were so frightened they had no choice but to obediently hand it over. I couldn't help but smile, pinching her plump cheeks. You did well, you haven't brought shame upon the Shui family. But miss, I simply can't stand the way concubine Lu flaunts herself. What should we do? I sipped my tea. Wait. Before long, the winds within the mansion shifted. Second Master Lu had committed a capital offense this time. His family would likely be implicated. Xia Sun saved the Lu family, but the emperor stripped him of his position. Madame Lu remained unsatisfied, kneeling daily at the moonlit pavilion. Her knees were already injured from her last punishment. This time, she was risking her life to make Xia Sun feel sorry for her. Deliver a letter to my mother. Tomorrow is a good day. I miss her. When Xia Sun was summoned the next day, the room was filled with maids frantically packing belongings. I clutched a sheet of stationery, lifting my gaze to meet his irritated eyes. With nowhere to vent my pent-up grievances, tears instantly streamed down my face. After months together, this was the first time I'd cried in front of him. He dropped his guard, patiently rolling up his sleeve to wipe my tears. What's wrong? Who's been bothering you? I only turned my head away and wept. Yin Xiao, you tell him. In reply to the young master, the lady sent word that her health is poor and she intends to recuperate in the countryside. The young lady grew anxious and sought your permission to visit the estate for a few days to see to the lady. The lady Yin Xiao referred to was, of course, my mother. Xia Sun froze, suddenly remembering that I hadn't seen my parents since my return visit after the wedding. He'd been consumed by the Lu family's affairs, neglecting the affairs of the Duke's residence. A pang of guilt washed over him. Why didn't you tell me? These days, I happen to be on leave. By both duty and affection, I should accompany you. Ah Huan's wedding date was set. Without my mother-in-law's matchmaking, things wouldn't have progressed so smoothly. I didn't call him out. Are you accompanying me, General? Or thanking my mother? He laughed helplessly, spreading his hands. What difference does it make? Why the sudden jealousy now? You get to be jealous and ignore me, but I can't feel the same? What kind of logic is that? Xia Sun chuckled awkwardly, changing the subject and offering more words of comfort. At noon, Mother Gui reported the carriage was ready, and the group prepared to depart. Lu Wanqing, however, chased them to the side gate, clutching the child. Brother-in-law, save my elder brother. He is the Lu family's only male heir. She knelt on the ground, weeping. Xia Wanyan clung to Xia Sun's legs, sobbing and calling out daddy. The little one swayed unsteadily under the scorching sun. How pitiful. If my sister were still alive. If your sister were still alive, she wouldn't be so blind to right and wrong like you. Attendants, take the concubine and young miss away. If they wish to kneel, let them return to Ingyue Pavilion and kneel there properly. Xia Sun remained silent for a long moment before speaking coldly. This was likely the harshest words Lu Wanqing had ever heard from him. spoken without regard for the many servants present. Her face drained of color, her spirit seemingly lost. She was dragged away like a marionette. There was no energy left to plead for others. This estate I carefully selected was originally my mother's dowry. Mother feigned strength to greet me, her body still weak. After so long apart, her eyes welled up at the first glance. It's just my usual ailments. I only came to the estate to rest for a few days. Why did you rush over, child? And why did you trouble your husband? Xia picked up on my words, offering some reassuring platitudes before tactfully giving us space to speak. This time, Mother's tears flowed freely. My child, you've suffered these past days. Listen to your mother, while that fox-like woman is absent. The most crucial thing is to bear a child. Once you deliver a legitimate heir, even the Empress herself won't dare touch your position. Once a woman is wed, no matter how dissatisfied she may be with the marriage, she must be persuaded to close her eyes, plug her ears, and endure it for the long haul. I listened obediently, then shared many playful remarks until her face finally broke into a smile. That night, the head cook personally prepared a feast of home-style dishes rarely seen in the city. Freshly slaughtered lamb, crispy fried small fish, free-range chickens raised on the farm, and mud-covered bok choy pulled straight from the field. Xia appetite was whetted, and I too helped myself to an extra bowl of red date and black chicken soup. My mother-in-law's place truly felt like a paradise. He had come here seeking peace and quiet, and the rural tranquility suited him perfectly. If you like it, stay a while longer. Behind the courtyard, there's a grove of crabapple trees in full bloom. It was planted the day my son joined the army. My mother paused before reluctantly adding, it was also planted the year Chinbi was born. Later, I'll have her take you to see it. He froze, blurting out, my brother-in-law? Mother excused herself to leave. I tugged his sleeve discreetly, and only then did Xia realize his slip. After months of marriage, he barely knew me, and my family remained mere superficial acquaintances to him. Naturally, he couldn't have known that my eldest brother, Shui Zhao, had died in the northern wilderness before turning 18. Perhaps because they were both martial men, he fell silent for a long while before offering to see the crabapple grove. Most of my martial arts skills were taught by my eldest brother. With a few sideways steps, I perched steadily on a branch, glancing down at Xia below. I smiled. Last time you visited, you only ate a meal before leaving the city to train the troops. You never saw the weeping crabapple tree outside my bedroom window, its blossoms already spilling over the eaves. I told him how mischievous I was as a child, always climbing trees to pluck blossoms, yet too clumsy to climb down. I'd wait anxiously for my two brothers to rescue me. Once, my second brother didn't catch me properly, and we tumbled down together. I lost 3 baby teeth, and my brother was severely punished by father. Later, when my eldest brother joined the army, my second brother and I would sit among the crabapple blossoms on the white walls and blue tiles, longing for his return. Later still, my second brother too went to the northern frontier. The day his coffin returned to the capital, I stopped climbing trees. I studied books, practiced calligraphy, trained in martial arts, and learned to manage the household. I mastered everything a young lady of noble birth should know, and even what they couldn't do, I would learn. I told my mother that without my 2 brothers, I could still uphold the Duke of Qing's household. Now, thinking back, it seems laughable. I was but a woman. What good is being capable? I must marry someday. Do you know the crabapple is the flower of longing? Xia didn't answer me. He only opened his arms, his gaze as soft as ripples on emerald waves. I closed my eyes as the wind brushed past my ears. Then I fell into a cool embrace. I caught you. His warm breath brushed my earlobe, intoxicating me like a fever. Everything fell into place, as if it were meant to be. In the days that followed, Mother simply claimed illness and stayed indoors, leaving the estate to us to run wild. Xia Sun, avoiding Lu Xianyang, kept postponing his return to the city. He explored the countryside like a treasure hunter, discovering its charms piece by piece. Today hunting, tomorrow fishing, and then he set his sights on the hot spring pool in the east courtyard, built of hewn stone. Didn't you say your body aches? Soaking in the hot spring has great benefits. I heard the teasing in his voice and spat out a sharp retort. But he took it seriously, scooping me up and heading toward the east courtyard. At the hot spring, my face remained stiff. No matter what he said, I would only dip my feet in the water. You're afraid of water? Xue Qingbi actually fears something? Xia Sun was quite surprised. In his eyes, I was a brilliant young lady who loved military texts, practiced martial arts, excelled in poetry and social graces, truly intelligent and bold. What proper lady can swim? I wasn't convinced. His gaze deepened as he chuckled. I've never seen a proper lady wielding swords and spears. Don't be afraid. Swimming isn't hard. There's a deep ravine beside the Longxi barracks. They strip the new recruits naked and toss them in. Within half an hour, they'll float. His crude explanation made me cover my ears, refusing to listen further. He just laughed heartily and plunged into the water, sinking beneath the surface. I splashed around for a moment before panic suddenly seized me. General! General! Xia Sun? Just then, a hand shot up from beneath the water, gripping my ankle. I flailed wildly a few times before a pair of strong hands clamped around my waist, pulling me back to the surface. You fool! That's called holding your breath, Xia Sun said triumphantly. I was so angry I wanted to punch him. But the moment I let go, my body began sinking straight down. I had no choice but to cling tightly to his neck. Underwater, we were like two fish pressed tightly together. It was far too intimate. Even in the most sincere embrace, nothing could rival the allure of a pool of spring water. After supper, Aunt Gui brought the pregnancy-nourishing herbs, her eyes and brows brimming with joy. Dr. Zhao says the hot spring water aids conception. You should soak in it for several more days. As I lifted the bowl and drank it down in one gulp, Xia Sun happened to enter with grilled fish. Is the mistress unwell? I turned my head away, saying nothing. Gui Mama, you tell him. Mama glanced at me, then leaned in to whisper something. Xia Sun paused, then spoke softly. When we have a child, I'll personally teach him to swim. Okay? I chuckled. Just that? Of course. Martial arts, archery, horseback riding. I hadn't asked him what if it were a daughter. Privately, I truly needed a legitimate son. A legitimate son born amid tender affection and endless anticipation. Only then would the marriage alliance hold true. Half a month slipped by unnoticed, until a letter arrived from the estate. Second Master Lu Qi had died in prison. If Qingbirua wished, there was no need to hurry back. Staying longer with her mother-in-law would cause no harm. In the carriage, Xia Sun expressed a hint of regret. I smiled and replied softly. The matter was urgent, but Mother is now well. As husband and wife, it is only natural that I accompany you. However, since Sister Lu has lost a loved one, the general ought to comfort her properly. With Lu Qi's affairs settled, he will surely visit Yingyue Pavilion to console her upon our return. Hearing my understanding words, a wave of guilt washed over him. Then, I'll come back in a few days to keep you company. That evening, he sent servants bearing deeds to several estates and fields. These are the general's private holdings. Should you ever feel bored, Madam, you are welcome to stay for a while. 2 days later, he sent a small wooden bow, Yin Xiao accepted it with delight. You're truly remarkable, miss. It seems the young master has taken quite a liking to you. Is that so? Xia Sun's heart. Everyone gets a piece of the pie. Running my fingers over the unfamiliar carvings on the small bow, I chuckled. Stop teasing. Go bury the medicinal residue. Be discreet about it. As summer approached, Xia Sun resumed his duties, spending 8 out of 10 days away from the manor. Towards me, he was as sweet as honey mixed with oil. The remaining 2 days were devoted entirely to Shudong Pavilion. Yin Xiao vented her pent-up frustration, strutting about like a proud rooster all day long. Meanwhile, Yin Pavilion remained eerily quiet. If I were her, I'd keep my tail tucked between my legs too. Who doesn't know the Lu family caused the general so much suffering? Good Yin Xiao. Could you please be quiet for a moment? I grew increasingly indolent, finding no interest in such petty jealousies. I only resented her noise while I read. Young lady, the master has sent word. Madame Gui entered, her expression unexpectedly grave. The old lady from Longxi has arrived. The general has gone out to greet her. You should prepare quickly. Young lady. So sudden. I had just positioned myself with the maids at the main gate of the Xia residence when Xia Sun helped the old lady down from her palanquin. Mother. Mother. This is your daughter-in-law. Qing Bai. I reached out to assist her, but the old lady gave me a cold glance and brushed my hand away. She cried out mournfully. Wan Qing. Where is Wan Qing? Lu Wan Qing, still clad in mourning, appeared all the more like a delicate willow in the wind. Pitiably fragile. Madam, Wan Qing fears she has no face to meet you. What nonsense! My dear child. Come quickly and support this old woman. Gui Mama and I exchanged a glance. This Lady Xia had once shared a close bond with the Lu family. She and the late Lu Wan had supported each other through thick and thin. Their relationship as close as mother and daughter. Lu Xiaonyang has invited this heavyweight over, she likely has ulterior motives. Xia Sun quietly clasped my hand and murmured. The matriarch is preparing for Ah Huan's marriage. After all, she must make a proper debut in the capital. I curved my lips slightly. Let's hope so. Mother has endured the journey's fatigue. Perhaps she should first. Once we settled in Qingzhou Hall, I was about to order dinner when the matriarch impatiently cut me off. Schwesher. Kneel. During our wedding, I hadn't performed the formal kowtow to her. Making amends now was only proper. But subjecting a newlywed daughter-in-law of a distinguished family to such scrutiny on their first meeting? That was either foolish or someone had deliberately stirred up trouble. Sooner. Seeing our Xia family's line about to die out. How could I possibly have an appetite? Xia Sun wore an expression that was both amused and exasperated. Mother. What nonsense are you speaking? Lu Rue. Speak. This servant, while on duty at Shudong Pavilion, has seen Sister Yin Xiao sneaking into the flower garden late at night to bury medicinal waste. The unassuming young maid knelt trembling. Later, while sweeping beneath the window, this servant heard the mistress say, she said she refused to bear the general's child. That the contraceptive potion must never be missed. Lu Xiaonyang covered her mouth with a handkerchief and whispered softly to Xia Sun. Lu Rui was a maid I assigned there. I cannot show favoritism. Since this concerns the First Lady, I had no choice but to report it to the old madam for her decision. Though Xia Sun's expression darkened, he defended her. It was the dead of night. How could you possibly see clearly what was being buried? Mother. Qingbi was taking fertility medicine. I have always known this. The maid is stirring trouble. Send her away. This servant has proof. Lu Rue cried out in panic. Beneath the old locust tree. In the forsythia garden, send someone to dig there. The steward led men to Shudong courtyard and indeed returned with a bundle of medicinal residue. Yin Xiao's flustered expression was clearly seen by all present. Lady Xia snorted coldly. Schwesher is noble. Yet she looks down on our Xia family. Let her report to His Majesty and the Empress and leave at once. My son, do not let this woman deceive you. Where is the court physician? Examine her. Inqiao's face flushed crimson, held tightly by Mother Gui. She turned her head away and wept silently. Madame Lu still pressed her handkerchief to her mouth, struggling to hide the faint smile at the corners of her lips. Reporting to the old madam, this medicine is cold in nature. If taken, it may hinder conception. Xia Sun remained silent, the atmosphere in the hall thick with an almost terrifying weight. After a long moment, his eyes held a mocking glint, as if he had never known me at all. Shui Qingbi, do you have nothing to say? I do. Just as I opened my mouth, darkness engulfed me, and I could no longer hold on. When I awoke, I was in Shudong courtyard. Nanny Lin stood nearby the Empress, murmuring auspicious blessings. Imperial physician Zhao stroked his white beard as he took my pulse. Madam is in good health, though she suffered a slight miscarriage. A few days of quiet rest will suffice. Avoid anger and agitation at all costs. Qingbi, did you hear that? You're 2 months pregnant. Xia Sun hurried to support me. I know. Of course. 2 months, it happened at the estate. Nanny Lin leaned in, her face beaming with joy. With this child, Your Majesty is truly overjoyed. The old lady is easily swayed. A few words from that scheming maid, and she believed it. The Empress has just brought the old lady into the palace to have a proper talk with her. It's nothing more than concern that Lady Xia would lose face. Bringing her into the palace is merely to avoid suspicion. I couldn't be bothered to deal with her for the moment. Instead, I turned to Xia Sun with a look of hurt. General, that medicine wasn't mine. I know. Xia Sun knelt before the bed, his face heavy with remorse. He took my hand and kissed it. The meddlesome maid has been dealt with. Mother will manage the household for now. Once you deliver the child, the entire Xia family will be yours. It was my fault. Such things will never happen again. I sighed softly and leaned weakly into his embrace. Xia Lang, this is the second time she's harmed me. And the second time you've doubted me. He knew perfectly well who I was referring to. Yet his face still showed distress and pain. After years of affection, he simply couldn't bring himself to probe deeper. With Lady Xia stepping in to support her again, I must be even more cautious. I set this trap to draw Lu Wanqing out first, to prevent her from causing trouble during my pregnancy. Right now, I only wish to bring this child into the world safely. Second, it was for my son's future. Xia Xuanrua has been by his side day and night since birth. Their bond is bound to be different. Seeing that this was enough, I curved my lips. Why such a look? Xia Lang? Am I some demon intent on devouring your sister Wanqing? If you cannot bear it, confine her to the moonlit pavilion. She must not appear before the mistress until after my delivery. Xia Sun suddenly exhaled in relief. His voice touched. Madam, you are magnanimous. I turned away, letting out a cold snort. You are forbidden to see her either. Yes. 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 I'll naturally stay only with you and the child. His hand rested on my lower abdomen, feeling the life about to begin its dance. Within days, he even carved a whole set of toy swords, spears, and halberds himself. The room was piled high with piece locks, writing brushes, inkstones, paper, and inkstones, little clothes, and small quilts. Though the days were leisurely, I couldn't sleep well. Dr. Zhao later prescribed some pregnancy-stabilizing herbs. Mother Gui personally supervised the special stove, reducing 5 bowls of water to half a bowl, then watched me drink every last drop. Yin Xiao picked up a honeyed fruit to feed me, smiling as she remarked, "Our girl's life truly keeps getting better and better." I gave her a half smile. "How about letting Inxiao take my place?" Her face immediately clouded. "I don't have your talents, young mistress. A doting husband, a meddlesome concubine, a foolish younger sister-in-law, a troublesome mother-in-law, and a high-ranking elder sister-in-law. Few households in the entire capital could rival ours in the art of mutual torment. Getting by is my skill. But that doesn't mean I want to, or that I enjoy this life." When Xiasun arrived, he saw the unease on my face. Thinking it was due to the hardships of pregnancy, he cautiously pressed his cheek against my belly. "These past few days, I've considered two names. If it's a boy, Xiaoling. If it's a girl, Xiaji. Would that be all right?" My gaze softened slightly as I smiled. "Why not name a girl with the character Wan? Like our eldest daughter?" He lifted his head, his expression earnest. "The character Wan is unsuitable. Besides, if she were a legitimate daughter, she should be distinguished." I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, yet no words came out. Ever since carrying this child, I've grown increasingly reluctant to indulge Xiasun's affections. If one speaks of his unwavering loyalty to his first wife, I admire his depth of feeling. Yet he took his sister-in-law as a concubine, a truly incongruous act. You say his conscience pricked him, that taking a concubine was his duty to the Liu family. But he never once advised Liu Qi against it, instead indulging him until disaster struck. You might argue his warrior background made him careless and clumsy, so such lapses were only natural. Yet he also harbors suspicion toward his own wife, his mind full of cunning schemes. Ultimately, his loyalty, his devotion, everything he does, it all stems from instinct. A self-serving satisfaction that comes effortlessly. Strip away his noble lineage and titles, and my husband is merely the most ordinary sort of man in the world. Unremarkable, utterly uninspiring, not worth my entire life. Suddenly, I find myself grateful he abandoned me on our wedding day. From that moment, it was destined I would never give him my true heart. When I gave birth to Linger, it was a difficult labor. The year's end drew near, and that day came half a month earlier than imperial physician Zhao had estimated for the due date. I heard Xiasun pacing frantically outside. Father and mother both arrived, their voices hushed as they hurled scathing curses at the Xie family. And the old lady from the in-laws' side, did she intend to guard only that mother and child? How much suffering did my cherished daughter endure in your household? I knew your Xie family was a line of selfish, heartless people. Now you're bringing a 3-year-old child to torment my daughter too. The Xie family is noble. Since you look down on our Shui family's daughter, you should have reported to His Majesty and the Empress Consort long ago and left. Naturally, my mother blamed my difficult, premature birth on the sudden appearance of Lu Wan and her child, and on Xie Wanyun, the return of Xie Sun's long-lost first wife, missing for nearly 4 years, was kept completely hidden from me. A village woman in coarse hemp garments, leading a gaunt, emaciated child, appeared out of nowhere at the Xie residence. The old matriarch of the Xie family immediately cried out, tears streaming down her face. "Ah, Wan, my child!" I have no knowledge of how Xie Sun looked upon seeing Lu Wan again. 3-year-old Xie Wanyun, clinging to the old lady's side, hadn't witnessed it and naturally couldn't recount it to me. Only that the child bore an uncanny resemblance to his father, as if carved from the same mold. Yin Xiao stepped before me, nervously reaching to cover my ears. This girl couldn't keep a secret, her face turned as pale as the finest blue-tanned paper, her thoughts as fragile as a bubble ready to burst. "Miss, don't listen. Little sister Lu wants to harm you." I smiled cheerfully. "If she harms me, I'll harm her back. No big deal. But since she came specifically to tell me, I must thank her." Since little sister Lu is here, please grace us with a cup of tea. The earthen pot on the small stove bubbled and steamed as I brewed a cup of Longshan tea, a specialty of Longxi. Outside on the veranda, Lu Wanqing, dressed as a lowly maid, handed the child who'd run to pull her back to the wet nurse. She lifted her head, smoothed her hair at the temples, and sat down calmly at the tea table. Madam, you're neither angry nor anxious? Lu Wan was Sun's first wife. So naturally, their eldest son was legitimate and rightful. As the later arrival, how should I and the child within me position ourselves? If I couldn't bear the provocation and lost both lives, it would simply be my own misfortune. If I endured the turmoil and stormed out, it would be a case of two enemies fighting while the third gains advantage. What cunning! What skill! Such a clever woman, had she married that scholar she was betrothed to. Might she have fared better? Lu Wanqing likely doesn't know yet. Days ago, in the ditches of Ningxue County, Longxi, they fished out a mangled skeleton. Word is it was a scholar who'd gone to the prefecture to take the imperial exams. Missing for 3 or 4 years. His surname was Zhang. Across the table, a hand clenched around the teacup. My gratitude to her is genuine. The hairpin he wore and the Lu family identification token hanging from his finger bone were secretly delivered to me. I placed them before Lu Wanqing. Her face was ashen, and she did not reach for them. After a long, hesitant pause, she suddenly laughed. A month after brother died, mother gave birth to another son. I nodded. A joyous occasion. The Lu family has another male heir. Lu Wanqing's eyes suddenly filled with tears. She roughly wiped them with her sleeve and hurried away. Though I don't understand why. Thank you. I sighed inwardly. Leaning on my belly, I stood in the center of the courtyard until warmth finally began to spread through my body. I knew roughly what she meant to say. For Lu Wan, a stepmother meant a stepfather. A match as splendid as the Xie families naturally belonged to the younger daughter who'd shared in the family's fortunes and misfortunes, not the eldest, whose birth mother had died of grief and whose relationship with the household had soured. For Lu Wanqing, she had to fight and seize it, for her brother. For her younger brother. For the parents who clung to her like leeches. But in the end, she discovered her fiancé's abandonment was merely a ruse, her parents' scheme to send her to her brother-in-law's bed. How utterly laughable. We were never confidants. Sharing the story of Scholar Zhang with her was both a risk and a waste. As sharp and perceptive as she was, she'd eventually figure it out. Lu Wan was the one I'd retrieved. Yin Xiao carefully fastened my cloak. What are you thinking about, young lady? I scattered a handful of fish bait and sighed. I was just thinking. Father and mother are probably the best parents in the world. The next moment, I plunged into the water. Xia Sun, worried about my melancholy, had specially dug a channel at Shudong to divert water and built a carp pond. The multicolored koi gathered briefly, then scattered like a fleeting, ethereal dream. He must have forgotten my fear of water. Just as he once knew nothing of Lu Wan's discord with the Lu family, nor later whether she lived or died. I truly regret it now. I should have ended Xia Sun and his family with a dose of poison. Why bother bearing this child? All my composure and scheming crumbled before the most primal agony. Fortunately, imperial physician Zhao's skill was exceptional, and I remained robust. After a day and night of turmoil, mother and child were finally safe. Father personally lifted me up. Mother took Linger, while Xia Sun scrambled to apologize and pull at her. Leaving Shudong Pavilion required passing through a long corridor where Lady Xia, accompanied by Lu Wan, awaited. Spotting Xia Sun, she clung to him, wailing at the top of her lungs. Sooner. Your legitimate wife and son are right here. Where do you intend to go? Could you possibly abandon us? A widow and her orphan child. To marry into another family? Amidst the clamor, Lu Wan stood rigid as a resilient wild bamboo. Our eyes met briefly, a silent, unspoken handover. On the third day back at the Duke of Qing's residence, Lu Wan filed a complaint with the prefect of the capital, accusing her biological father and stepmother of colluding with bandits to hunt down their own daughter. This act, defying all moral bonds and utterly horrifying, soon became the talk of the entire city, reaching the imperial court. With extraordinary forcefulness, Lu Wan made the whole capital remember that Xie Sun's first wife was still alive. The Shui family's position became truly awkward. Confidants from the empress's entourage came several times, but mother dismissed them all, claiming illness. My father, heedless of my postpartum weakness, fixed me with a deep, intense gaze. You went to such lengths to bring Lu Wan back. Are you determined to defy me? My heart skipped a beat. This matter could not be hidden from my father. Yes. His Majesty merely seeks the Duke of Qingguo's household to exemplify loyalty. Now, the legitimate sons of the Xie and Shui clans are sufficient to bind the two families together, creating mutual restraint. Lu Wan is the legitimate first wife. No matter how much one argues, there is a clear order of precedence. With the right timing and circumstances, a divorce now would be the most natural course. Father suddenly furrowed his brow, eyeing me suspiciously. You and Lin Jingtang? I gave a bitter smile. It's not what you imagine, Father. From the moment this marriage was hinted at, I enlisted help from Father's military contacts to track Lu Wan's whereabouts. I demanded to see her alive or her body if dead. But after my betrothal to Xie Sun, Father gradually let the matter drop. I never gave up, but lacking a trusted confidant, only Lin Jingtang remained to assist me. Childhood sweethearts. Bound by youthful affection, both of us are upright individuals. Father, shall Linger inherit the Duke of Qing's estate in the future? What do you think? I teased the sleeping little bundle a few times before carefully placing him in his grandfather's arms. We hold both the heart and the reason on our side. If I move to the monastery to live a life of fasting and prayer, this matter may yet be accomplished. Father suddenly lifted his eyes to meet mine, his thoughts churning. After a long moment, he brushed a stray lock of my hair back with one hand before smiling. Rest assured and tend to your health. Your father has his own plans. It wasn't until the imperial decree arrived, granting me permission to dissolve the marriage and bestowing upon me the title of county princess, that I learned the truth. Only then did I learn that on that day in the hall of revered splendor, Father had raised the imperial token and knelt in submission, adopting every posture of humility. The emperor refused to grant him retirement from the military, likely to spare the hearts of the old ministers. As for the Xie and Shui family's muddle of a situation, he simply bestowed upon my son the imperial surname, naming him Xiao Ling. This showed honor and respect, yet maintained fairness. Though I could not inherit the title, a son must forge his own path through merit and achievement. Nothing in life is ever perfect, and this outcome was already a blessing. Not long after, the heartless parents of the Lu family were sentenced to exile. When the news arrived, Mother and I were shaking our rattle drums and making funny faces at Xiaoling. Father brewed a pot of Guzhu Zi Sun tea, leaning back in his armchair to study military treatises. A rare moment of leisure. Madame Gui told me Lu Wanqing never personally testified against her parents for killing scholar Zhang. Death extinguishes all traces. She merely chose the path most advantageous to herself. For the rest of her life, the Xie family will remain her battlefield. But it has nothing to do with me anymore. When Xie Sun came to find me, the first blossom of crabapple bloomed beside the blue-tiled walls. He drank heavily, tugging at my sleeve and demanding, "Why did it come to this? Shui Qingbi, do I even exist in your heart? Sometimes I feel you're my wife. Other times you seem like a kite drifting in the sky. I can't find the string. Qingbi, where is your string? How strange. When we were husband and wife, All he needed to do was stand still, waiting for me to lay myself bare before him, believing every word, true or false. Now that we are no longer husband and wife, he insists on probing my true feelings. Later I understood, he was simply too dissatisfied. Lu Wan treated him coldly, no longer the loving wife of old. Lu Wanqing fawned over him, growing ever more cautious and careful. They only call me a stranger. Only you truly understand me. I was gentle and understanding, yet never lost my dignity or coyness. I could converse with him on everything from military strategy texts to the philosophy of life, satisfying his leisurely interests. It couldn't have been better. Seeing I didn't respond, he began rambling on about the 2 children of the Xia household. For some reason, neither of them grew close to him. Xia Mo, cast adrift in the world, was as timid as a startled bird, that much was understandable. But Xia Wanyun, who had been cherished like a precious treasure since childhood, now carried herself with the solemnity of a miniature adult, having lost much of her childlike joy. As the sun beat down, the alcohol fog lifted from his mind. I had the wet nurse bring Linger over. A few-month-old baby is at the peak of curiosity. His grape-like eyes rolled around, taking in Xia Sun. He then grabbed the fingers Xia Sun was waving to amuse him, shoving them into his mouth, chewing and smacking them freely, covering Xia Sun's hand in saliva. Xia Sun found it utterly delightful. After all, this was the child he had longed for day after day. His eyes suddenly welled up, and tears nearly spilled. Later, whenever Xia Sun had time off from his duties, he often visited the Duke of Qinggua's residence to see Xiaoling. He would occasionally bring gifts. They were always the most coveted toys for children of that age. Father and mother watched coldly, pretending not to see. I no longer intervened. Each time, I only instructed Yin Xiao and the wet nurse to keep a close watch on Linger, without interfering too much in their father-son interactions. When Xiaoling turned 5, Xia Sun fulfilled his earlier promise and personally taught him archery and mounted archery. Every day upon returning home, Linger would excitedly tell me how formidable his father was, how heroic his bearing. I felt a twinge of jealousy, but he would then wrap his arms around my neck, snuggle close, and coo, "Mother is the best. No one in the whole world can compare to my mother." When Xiaoling turned 8, His Majesty the Crown Prince, born to the Empress, ascended to the throne. The Emperor personally selected this young cousin to serve as the Crown Prince's companion tutor in the palace. Everyone could see this child was destined for greatness. Yet I couldn't help but worry, waiting for his monthly leave from the palace to subtly inquire if anyone had bullied him. Ling grew increasingly composed, smiling as he reassured me. "Mother worries too much. My mother was the Princess of Anyang County, my father the capital's garrison general, and my maternal grandfather the renowned Duke of Qinghua, celebrated for his military achievements. The Empress Dowager was my own aunt by seniority. Even His Highness the Crown Prince had to address me as young uncle. If any fool dares cross him, my silver spear won't hold back." At 12, Xiaoling returned to the capital from the northern frontier. With 10 years of military merit, he petitioned His Majesty to marry the Princess of Anyang. The benevolent emperor summoned my father to ask my consent. Mother urged me, saying I was still young and should live for myself for a few years. Ling rushed home from the palace. All these years, though I couldn't speak freely about my parents' affairs, I was never blind to right and wrong. I once placed myself in mother's position and asked myself if I could have done better than you. He knelt 3 times and bowed 9 times, paying solemn homage. He only wished for my happiness and well-being. On the day Lin Jingtang and I quietly departed the capital, a spring rain fell upon the city outskirts. Those who came to see us off from the city walls faded into the haze of mist and water. Only that single branch of crabapple remained, its blossoms as vibrant as ever. General Lin, now transferred to Han Prefecture, reassured me. Though Jiangling is distant, the waterways are accessible. I can return whenever I wish. He smiled, then added, that youngster Xiaoling challenged me to a duel with his spear. I lost by half a move. I'm not young anymore. I smiled too, lips pressed together. Not old either. It's already quite good. Many years remain in life. The end.